The sins of Nathaniel Essex run deep indeed, but is he finally ready to spring his trap on the Krakoan Quiet Council? Well, let's hop into the pages of Immortal X Men issue number 9 and number 10, the prelude to the brand new Sins of Sinister X Men event, and find out what happens next together, shall we? Alrighty then, so as we join the book, we're actually joining the Quiet Council at a rare bit of downtime. Judgment Day has come to an end, and everyone is taking a chance to slow down and count their blessings. They got the Eternals on their side now, they have Uranus to use as a weapon should they want. Storm is continuing to expand the Mars colony. Yep, all in all, things seem pretty good. Well, that is of course except for the one riddle that Krakoa could just never seem to solve, and that is of course the supervillain turned council member, Mr. Sinister. The council wanted Essex in the room so they could talk about this mysterious Dr. Stasis individual, a guy who is very clearly a clone of Mr. Sinister himself, who is now working for their enemies in Orchis. However, Sinister clearly has different ideas because when he rolls up, he kills Hope Summers, before eventually getting roundly killed by the other members of the Quiet Council. Normally this would be the end of the story, but Mr. Sinister is far from normal. If you've been paying attention to this story, you'll know full well Essex has been making clones of Moira McTaggart to make use of her time-folding Groundhog Day powers to reset timelines whenever he wants or whenever he gets into trouble. Here's the problem though, while Mr. Sinister is a master cloner, recreating amazing mutant powers like Moira is a lot more difficult than recreating genetic material. Basically, every time Sinister fires out a new Moira, her powers get a little weaker and weaker, and Sinister is going to have to start thinking about his moves very carefully to try and take over Krakoa and take down the Council. Lord knows he doesn't want to go too back in what are essentially his mutant save states, because no one wants to see him relive Judgment Day. Especially not Kieran Gillen, who wrote that story and is writing Immortal X Men, and especially not Sinister himself, who actually managed to make that whole event without getting judged. Eventually, Sinister crunches the numbers and comes to the realization that he has maybe 10 chances left to actually take down his enemies in the Quiet Council once and for all. Unfortunately, though, every time he tries to kill the Quiet Council, it all ends up blowing up in his face one way or another. Either Destiny uses her abilities to see the future before he can actually draw a weapon, or Xavier or Emma Frost or any of the other powerful psychics look into his mind and see his ill intent. And hell, even if he does manage to kill a couple council members, the rest, like Storm, are so incredibly powerful they could vaporize him from across the room as easy as breathing. Maybe the problem is all firepower based, thinks Mr. Sinister. Maybe if he can just take them all out in one go, if he builds a big enough robot suit or weaponizes some eternal technology, then maybe he can finally get the job done. He even tries to throw a giant octopus at the Quiet Council, which really makes me think of Watchmen, and even that doesn't work. It's only on his very last attempt does he get really creative. Maybe the problem is he shouldn't go to the Council, maybe he should make the Council come to them, make the psychics read his brain, which he's rigged, with a psychic bomb stitched together from many cloned brains of Xavier. This takes out more than a few members of the Quiet Council, while people like Destiny aren't actually around. That's all fine and good, but the real challenge was always Hope Summers, the mutant messiah. For her, Sinister puts together a special hollow point bullet, the most hollow point bullet that ever bulleted. The big idea here being that if Sinister can take out half the Council and Hope, he'll also be crippling the Five, and by extension the mutant resurrection protocols. Now, that's where issue 9 ends, and as we pick up with issue number 10, the rest of the surviving members of the Council have their backs against the wall and the clock ticking to figure out what exactly they're going to do next. Now, obviously, they're not dumb. They always feared a day like this might come, wherein they need to reach into their redundancy programs for the Five. Basically, everyone on the Five was replaceable in one way or another, but Hope wasn't. She was a special mutant, one of a kind. One whose power set and X gene are very unique and not that much recurring. Still, though, they have to try. In the past, they experimented with using mutants like Mimic to try and recreate Hope's amazing powers. Normally, it's a bust, thanks in no small part to the fact that Mimic himself is kind of a wuss. Thankfully, Sync has only gotten more powerful since his time in the Vault, and he opts to step on in and play the part of Hope. As far as playing the part of Xavier, the amazing psychic, it's actually the Stepford Cuckoos who step on in as a trio, making this officially the 8 instead of the 5, and this works long enough to bring Hope back, who in turn is able to use her powers with the rest of the 5 to resurrect the other dead members of the Quiet Council. Understandably, they're royally pissed, and they're out for Sinister's blood. Now, what is particularly interesting about issue 10 is that it's narrated by some unseen person. Obviously, the gimmick of Immortal X Men is that every member on the Council got their own issue devoted to themselves. Issue 9 was actually about Kate Pryde, but you could be forgiven for for not noticing that, because basically the latter part of the book is just all about Sinister and told from his point of view. At first, it seems like the narration is coming from Charles Xavier. It would make sense because he's the next one in the pecking order to get a focus issue. Xavier gets together the classic X-Men team as well as the members of the Quiet Council to hunt Sinister down at his base of operations, which actually turns out to be an old base of operations that the X-Men dealt with back when they were the Phoenix Five. Sinister has spruced up security since then, sending an army of twisted, malformed chimera mutants like Eye-Boy Cyclops. In fact, we even see that Sinister cloned Dark Beast at some point too, though he admits that Dark Beast isn't even the worst beast these days. The narration itself actually probably delivers some of the coldest Xavier lines we've heard in a very long time, and that's saying something because the Krakoan era is filled with ice-cold Xavier. Xavier talks a lot about what it means to be a father, to be a leader, to be a mentor, and how he went out of his way to make sure that the X-Men he picked were always able to fill very specialized roles. Even if they didn't always seem apparent from the outset, he also talks about how he always wanted people to be able to check him and his ambitions. Because, well, power is a terrible thing that corrupts absolutely, and Xavier knows all about the corrupting draw of power because, well, he's looked in the mirror once or twice in his life. He knows with just a simple thought and some hard work he could probably make every mutant-hating bigot's head explode if he wanted, and hell, if the tables were turned and Magneto woke up with his amazing mind powers, he probably would've. Still though, Xavier feels quite conflicted, like he doesn't do near enough, but he also admits that the world doesn't know half of what he actually does behind the scenes. In fact, this issue implies that the reason there's been no nuclear war in the Marvel Universe is because Xavier went out of his way to put psychic blocks into everyone's heads. Now, what exactly is Mr. Sinister's big plan? Well, he plans to escape on that spaceship we saw in some of Destiny's visions, but he doesn't make it far because the Vengeful Council is there to stop him. Their plan is to treat Essex like any other Krakoan criminal, and that is sink him to the bottom of the pit with all the rest, though they wonder if that will be punishment enough for everything he's actually done today. Before he went to, Sinister actually managed to get in some pretty good lines himself, saying that the Krakoan dream was always built on a foundation of blood, and that if it weren't for amoral mutants like Moira, Magneto, Apocalypse, and Sinister himself, mutants wouldn't be living their dream right now. Hell, they should be thanking him for everything he does. And so yeah, with Sinister vanquished, it looks like everything is back to normal on Krakoa. In fact, they might even be in a better place now than they were before after kicking out so many bad apples. The final narration is once again from Xavier himself, or at least who we think to be Xavier. He once again talks about being a martyr to mutant kind, and that everyone should be grateful that his powers don't fall into the hands of anyone less worthy, because if they did, surely it would mean destruction for everyone. And as the comic comes to a close, Xavier takes off his helmet, revealing that he has a crimson red Sinister diamond on his forehead, but geez, when did that happen? And so that was Immortal X Men issue number 9 and number 10, everybody, and I gotta say I'm actually happy that I waited and read these two issues back to back because they actually make a lot more sense and are a lot more fulfilling read together. This is of course the big prelude to the next big upcoming X-Men event, Sins of Sinister, but it also does a really good job too bringing to close a bunch of different storylines that Immortal X-Men has been playing with, as well as asking many more sure to be important questions. If Professor Xavier has been compromised by Sinister, when did it happen? He didn't have the diamond on his forehead when he was resurrected. Was that always part of Sinister's plan? Were the people who were brought back actually brought back as his thralls? Neither the X-Men nor the Quiet Council found Sinister's real base of operation with the Moira clones, and if they did, what would that actually mean, you wonder? What is Sinister's actual end goal here? Is it just to control Krakoa? Is it just to get some respect? Is it just because he's a jerk? Does any of this have to do with Dr. Stasis and the other implied Sinister clones with other card suits on their heads? I wonder. Overall, though, I'd give this one a very positive 8.5 out of 10. This is good stuff, and I can't wait to see what happens next. I'm not reading all the X-Men books anymore, but the ones I am reading, I'm really enjoying, like this one.
Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cave Jewel, and if you're seeing me right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, which I am very appreciative of. It really helps drive engagement and retention and all that other good YouTube stuff. So does liking and commenting. Wink wink. If you like my content too, you should check out my Patreon page. We just redid all the tiers, so there's a ton of great rewards. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, and well, it would just really help me out. It's never expected, but always appreciated. So until next time everyone, I've been Cave Joel, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.